Okay, here's some sample code for our Hello World Flask application. So the first thing we'll do is import some modules, and then we'll create the app Flask object. So now these @ signs here are what's called decorators, and so we're defining a route. So this will be the home page, and it will return Hello World. And then we're going to find another web page called name.cgi, and that's going to get a name argument from the URL and say return hello plus the name. Now let's get into some of the networking. So the Raspberry Pi has two network interfaces, one which is the regular, what you would consider a regular IP address, and then the special LO, which is the loopback address, which is the 127.0.0.1. Now, as you can see, that loopback address only connects to the Raspberry Pi and not to the other machines on the network. So now we'll test our configuration. So we'll set the environmental Flask app to our script, and we'll launch Flask. And as you can see, it's going to be running on the loopback address at port 5000. So now what we're going to do is open another window on the same host, and we're going to use an application called curl to connect to that URL. And as you can see, there's some header information and then the hello world. Now that's what the decorator did for us. It added all that additional headers where we only had to write the simple hello world in the script. So now let's enable Flask to connect to any host. So if we put that --host 000, so that means we can get web pages from any machine. So this is the Windows box. As you can see, that comes up, and we can still connect to the loopback address. So you can see in the output from the main screen, each time we're hitting it, and it tells us what interface we're using to hit the Flask server. Now let's start our server in development mode. So we'll set the Flask environment to development, and we'll run on, again, host 000, so any interface will work. So we're going to use our example where we set up where we can pass environment variables in on the URL. So again, here's the code from the beginning of the script. So we've got this name equals request args get name, and it's going to default to blank if it's not passed, and we're going to return the hello and the person's name. So again, we'll go to Chrome and we'll go to that URL, and when we pull that up, you can see in that parameter it's pulling that information out and echoing it back onto the web page. Now, we started this in development mode, so let's pull up the code again. So since it's in development mode, we can make changes to this code without having to restart the server. So I'm going to rename the URL to be .php, and again, this isn't a PHP script or a CGI script. This is just for demonstration purposes. So we're going to rename this URL to PHP, and as you can see, it works. So the URL, or in the app route, is just a pattern match on the URL. So you can pretty much name it anything you want and make people think that it is a PHP or CGI script.